Hey there, Foundations class. So I want to talk about the argumentative essay that you're going to be working on. So the point of the argumentative is to take a position on a topic and to convey your argument. So we can get lost in the idea of arguing because the topic here says to write an argument. So in the academic setting, you will all learn more about this in Comp 2, which is 10123. Um, the single most common misunderstood um, in composing an argument is to assume that there is no difference between an argument and an opinion. But it's all an opinion, right? So we might rightly point out, and yes, it is true that all claims start out as opinions. For example, Columbus was thought to be crazy for suggesting that the world was round. Crazy, right? Another example, the ancients thought that the earth was the center of the universe, which now that we know is not the case, right? The sun is the center. At first glance, it may seem that the argumentative essays are merely asking you to write your opinion, since there should be a present claim, which again is an opinion, suggested by reasoning and evidence, which persuades your reader that the thesis your paper advances still is a valid one. An opinion, and this is the definition here, you need to keep in mind, an opinion is an assertion that is not supported by logic or evidence. So here we're not talking about opinions, we're making an argumentative statement. So kind of going on to argumentative ideas when you write your paper. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here so you can see. Make sure I don't go too far. Okay. So we're going to talk about inductive and deductive reasoning. So what is inductive and deductive reasoning? So inductive reasoning is when multiple premises are believed to be all true or true most of the time and are combined to come to a specific conclusion. So my example there, number one, every tornado I have ever seen in the United States rotates counterclockwise, and I have seen a dozen of them. Two, we see a tornado in the distance, and we are in the United States. Number three, I conclude that the tornado we see right now must be rotating counterclockwise. So a meteorologist may tell you that this is not true all of the time. The conclusion is probably true, but not necessarily true. Deductive reasoning has conclusions based on the concordance of multiple premises that are generally assumed to be true. Deductive reasoning is sometimes referred to as top down logic, while inductive is referred to as bottom up logic. So deductive reasoning proceeds from a general premise to a specific conclusion, while inductive reasoning proceeds for a specific premise to a general conclusion. So my example for deductive reasoning here is number one, all men are mortal. Number two, Socrates is a man. Number three, therefore Socrates is mortal. So this premise is structured in a three-step argument called syllogism, and I have that down here for you. So the three steps are the major premise, the minor premise, and the conclusion, again, right here. So all men are mortals, the major premise. Socrates is a man is a minor premise, and therefore Socrates is mortal is the conclusion. Uh, so the point of the argument is to convey your stance in hopes that you will either change your reader's mind about the topic or that they will at least be more open minded about the topic. It is not about insults or belittlement. We are all able to express an educated perspective calmly and professionally. Um, so I made a statement in my week 5 intro video on topics I don't want you discussing, and the reason is that they're too controversial, and so that would cover vaccination or the anti-vax movement, politics, gun rights, all that kind of stuff. So, if anything, if you're not sure before you start on a topic, please email me and I will let you know if it's okay to pursue. But the majorly controversial ones, I don't want you to write about. And so, now that we're kind of moving on to sorry, I'm looking through my notes just to make sure I have what I need to talk about in this video before I end it. So when we talk about our argumentative papers, what we need to do is that we need to, again, hopes to change the mind of the reader or to convince them to be more open-minded, and we need to make sure that we pull in the right sources. Um, so what we're looking for in our sources is um, evidence that are from a reputable, unbiased, and peer-reviewed outside source, and that we also need to use primary and secondary sources. And this little bit I mentioned in my week 5 intro video, if you recall me saying that. And I kind of talked a little bit about this bit here too in that intro video. Um, so basically, what is a reputable, unbiased, and peer-reviewed source? So basically, like I said in my week 5 intro, is this is from someone who has a master's degree or above. And the reason being is because we are professionals in the field, masters of our field, and we have studied enough to know what's fact and what isn't. And it's hard to take, say, like a blog source seriously, especially because there are a lot of assumptions made and no real facts to back up their statements. So this is kind of the reason why you're in the academic field, you're kind of pushed to look for reputable, unbiased, and peer-reviewed sources. Um, so if you have a question on to why I don't want to do particular controversial topics now that I'm thinking about it. Um, so you can't really write about these topics or related topics of those particular ones. Are some topics are too controversial for an academic setting simply because they are so heated on both sides of the argument. I'm sorry, guys. It's my daughter calling me. So, this is not to say that we can never have discussions academically or publicly, but for the purposes of avoiding any blowouts, these topics that I mentioned earlier are off limits. So, we need to remember that the point of the argumentative is to convey your stance in hopes to change the mind of your reader or to convince them to be more open minded. Um, and, well, again, why can't we do that with a controversial topic? Let's say you want to talk about guns and gun rights and how you should be allowed to carry wherever you want, and that kind of thing. The thing is, each stance is going to be so heated that it doesn't matter what you may say or write, it's going to get lost in the battle of the anger that is portrayed. So um, the big thing, let's stick to topics that are more easily arguable, so that way we're not getting lost in a heated discussion. If anything, please feel free to email me for any questions.